All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Talking Preps. Yeah, I got my man Sam Griner. How you doing, Sam?
Doing good. How are you?
And there's my man Chris Hughes. How you doing, Chris?
How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. And we got to bring in the elder statesman of the group, Mr. Dale Ross. How are you, Mr. Dale Ross?
How you guys doing? Good.
All right. Now, this is my first time being a producer while I'm talking, so you got to bear with me a little bit. So if things go wrong, it's my fault, but bear with me for a little bit. Guys, we got a couple really special guests in the back. We got Masanori Toguchi, Hough High School, Scott Chadwick, the head football coach of Mars. Toguchi, obviously, is athletic director of Hough High, which is one of the top athletic programs in the state of North Carolina. Before we bring them in, I want to get you guys' thoughts real quick. Chris, some colleges are opening in September, just a couple weeks after schedule. UNC Charlotte today announced that. Do you think that's a good sign for high schools?
I think so. At least it's a positive sign. And if the progression of opening up the nation and the state and everything kind of seems to be going in that direction, I certainly think it's a positive sign. And I hope that we can get to that point. But I do think that it's at least a positive start.
Dale.
I think it's a little early, but stay positive. Hope it is.
And Sam, as a football coach, I know you like this news that at least somebody's going back on campus, right?
Yeah, anytime there's football starting and people going on campus, that's a good thing. It shows we're moving in a different direction. Hopefully we're able to start football, and it'd be great. One thing I can't hear Chris when he's talking. I don't know why.
I don't know. Again,
I'll talk louder, Coach.
Everybody's microphones are on.
I know, that's crazy. Oh, shoot.
Coach Griner, the East-West All-Star games didn't include any Union County players, only one Mecklenburg County player, a linebacker from North Mecklenburg. Did that surprise you? That it's for graduated seniors, but that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me as much anymore because a lot of the big players that come out of like Charlotte, even Union County, they're going to play Division I football a lot of times, and kids that are just a step below that, a lot of times they get them closer to Greensboro, closer to Raleigh. That's where the kids are mostly will say, well, it's not that far of a drive for me to play in that game. It's more convenient. But for someone to come from Charlotte and they're going to college already in the fall, it doesn't work out quite well with them.
Chris, your thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Sam. And another thing with this game in particular that could be a yearly difference is just the fact of who's on the coaching staff. The coaches are the ones that pick this game. And one thing I've learned from coaches, not only from this game, but also the Shrine Bowl, now more so this game than the Shrine Bowl, but there's always players who are picked, and so often with this game, because it's 2 weeks into July, you've got guys that just don't decide not to play. So they may be on second, third, and sometimes fourth choices before they're able to name a roster.
Yeah. Dale, you think this is going to be a trend? We're going to see fewer Mecklenburg County and Union counties ascending as a football power. You think we're just going to see fewer of these moving forward?
I question sometimes the value of the game when it's played. If we want to get players that are I hate to say no players worthy, but if you're wanting to get the better players, that's just not the time of year to get them. What college is going to want their star athlete to play or have we seen? No. So I like the concept of what the game is, but this is a game I'd like to see played towards the end of the or at the end of the season, sometime around our normal Shrine Bowl. Then we might get more players, more participation of people coming to watch, and I think the game might have some more value. I hate to think it's losing value, but I tend to believe it is.
Right. Okay, well, with that, we're going to bring in, we got Nancy Griffin saying hello from Florida. We miss Charlotte. Nancy, we miss you as well. We're going to bring in the Hough High School Athletic Director, Masanori Toguchi. How are you, Masanori Toguchi?
I'm good. I had to unmute there for a minute.
And we're also going to bring in Scott Chadwick, the head football coach at Marsh Park High School. How you doing, Coach?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
I wanted to ask Toguchi, what is it like as an athletic director for one of the biggest and most successful high school programs in the state of North Carolina? What's it been like for you guys missing spring sports for all your seniors? My heart goes out to those guys. They're missing prom. They're missing state championships. They're just missing so many, big events for high school kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is making sure that we have connection with the seniors and with all the other athletes that will be returning. The biggest thing, is this is the first time this has happened, in a long time, maybe since, the war or, whenever. I try to go back and look in history, when was sports taken away from a high school standpoint or just in general, and it's been hard to find. So, a lot of schools are being creative in trying to see how they can honor seniors. We've had check-ins, people are hand delivering banners. They're having senior nights. They're trying to do as much as they can on social media. But I think the big thing is the social, emotional, and the mental health of kids in general, of being away from their friends. FaceTime and Zoom and all of that can only go so much. It's the health portion of the connection of just humans.
What is your thought moving forward? I've been asking, as many athletic officials as I can. I want to ask Coach Chadwick the same question about high school football having a season and or starting on time or somewhere close to on time.
Well, I think the thing for any sport is going to be the health and safety of the kids. Once we get them, once we're able to put our hands on them, we can get them back into shape and we can develop skills. It's just what is the timetable going to be, and what does that look like? When we're in the dog days of August, we've had those kids all summer being able to condition them. What does that look like? It's going to take a team effort between, administration, the coaches, and, our athletic trainers to have an understanding of every kid's not going to be on the same level conditioning wise or have been worked out or access. So that's the health and safety of our young kids and kids in general are going to be the most important thing.
Hey, Coach, the one thing I wanted to ask you, and this could go for you, Coach Toguchi, or to Coach Chadwick. Obviously, we know the challenges in just when we can start back and like you mentioned, having our hands on the players and being able to start the conditioning. But from a preparation, because I know how coaches are, I've been in that boat, you as well. What are you thinking in terms of just schematically? Do you work on what you can install, what you can do? Like, do you have a timetable of how you would install anything offensively, defensively, or you just worry more about just getting them there and going through the conditioning and getting them acclimated back to being on the field every day?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think probably the first thing you're going to do when you get the kids back is probably try to assess where they are from a conditioning standpoint. My strength coaches, Mark Harmon and Luke Whitson, have done a great job of communicating with the guys and sending workouts and giving them stuff. But, that's not the same as us standing there with them and having a whistle and, and being right there with them. So, being able to assess where they are when you get them probably determines then when do you go into schemes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah,
I can hear Sam. Chris.
Go ahead, Sam.
Sam, you have any questions for the coach or for Toguchi? That's what it was your turn to go.
I'd love to be able to talk to. I can't hear Scott or I can't hear Chris. I don't know what the problem is. I hear Toguchi. I hear Dale. I can't hear anybody. I don't know what's
anyway, Sam. So
bring you back in and maybe it'll work. I don't know.
Technology. Log back out and come back in. We'll see if we can get you that way.
All right, I'll see what I do. I'll do that real quick.
Coach Chadwick, while he's doing that, I want to ask you about your football schedule for next season. I've been hearing a lot about this football schedule. I don't know if it's all going to come off, but tell us about who's on the schedule for Myers Park next year.
Well, we open up with Mallard Creek, and I know that's a game everybody wanted to see, and that's going to be part of the I think they're calling it the Charlotte Kickoff Weekend. We're going to play the first game on Wednesday night, and then I think there's a couple of games Saturday night. I think Vance and Dutch Fork are a part of the Saturday night games. We're going to play Mallard Creek on Wednesday, and then we come back the following Saturday, so we get a 10-day break. And we're going to host Trinity Christian. They're out of Texas. Deion Sanders' son is the quarterback, and Deion Sanders is actually I think, offensive coordinator. And we're playing them at our place on Saturday at noon. I'm not sure contractually what I'm allowed to say, but there is a certain television company that's in charge of that. And then the following
this will
week,
drive me insane. I ain't gonna be able to hear. I can't hear a word he's saying, and I know he's a funny guy, so I want to know what he's saying. I'm like, yeah.
I don't know what's going on with
Where's
you.
that new sign language?
Sign language, some stuff in there. I can figure it out.
Go get your headphones and put your headphones in. I don't know.
I can hear. See, it says Chris is. I looked at it right now. It says Chris's mic is off for me. Now it's on.
Yeah.
But say something, Chris. Let me see if
I'm here. I'm here, Coach. Can you hear me?
Never mind. I can't hear it. I'm like, golly.
Can you hear me?
I hear Dale, Toguchi, and you though. I don't know what the
live TV, man, live TV. But I'll clue you in, Sam. But Coach Chadwick, tell us. I'm sorry, you back to your schedule. You have a nationally televised game on the Surge Sports Network, and then what happens after that?
So week 3, the Saturday night of Labor Day weekend. Again, contractually, I'm not sure what I can say, but we're playing at a neutral site. We're playing South Point from Rock Hill, and there's a certain team in town whose headquarters are moving to Rock Hill, and they might have a little bit to do with setting that game up, and might have a little bit to do with the location of that game. So that's our first 3. We get a bye week 4.
So you might be playing downtown a little bit.
Our home field is downtown, but this game is probably going to be a little more downtown than usual. Yeah.
Uptown.
And then we get a break and we play Hough week 5. So our first 4 games are going to be a lot of fun.
Toguchi, last time you guys played, they put 69 on you at Hough. Is that going to be a little revenge type of game there?
Hey, listen, I don't get into the X and O's, man. I just do the stadium setup and the game day logistic thing. So I leave that to the coaches and the players. I just kind of am a spectator and sometimes act as the get back coach, so we don't get those sideline warnings. So that's my problem.
So
I'll let you make a great get back coach.
Absolutely.
In our last get together, we talked a little bit to Q about the potential of even flipping the season, and I'm curious to think or hear what both these guys have to say about that. What are their thoughts if something like that were to be brought up? And that means playing football at the end of the year instead of the start of the year.
Go ahead, Gooch.
From a standpoint, I'm not really a fan of it. I want to get what we can get in the fall. I just think, when you don't want to put the stress on kids that are going to be mid-year graduates to have to hang around to play their senior year, in the spring, or forego their senior season of high school. So that's just kind of my standpoint. Let's play what we can play. And deal with it, the way make sure everybody has the same hand of cards to play.
What if that's the only way we can play?
I mean, I kind of agree with Gooch. I'm not a fan of changing the season around for a lot of the reasons he just said. First of all, football is a fall thing, and it does put stress on guys that are planning on leaving at mid-year. The other thing is, if you play in the spring, how about the following year? You're going to finish a season of football in May or June, and then turn around and play again in 2 months. So, I mean, that's an awful quick turnaround. The other part of it is, and Goose can probably speak better than I can on this, but from a budgetary standpoint, a lot of people need that money that comes from football, and they need it in the fall. So, I mean, I think it's important that, we try to get that in the fall. But to answer your question, if it's the only way, then I guess that's what we have to do if it's the only way.
Yeah, Chadwick, I think with the financial model of football kind of helps pay the bills. I think you got to look at it from multi-tier. I mean, from high school to college, schools that, focus on, football, making the money to help pay the bills. Now you're going to look at a certain model that you're going to have to look how you do finances, even with sponsors that have had to shut down, even with families that may not have, may have been furloughed or whatever. So now you're going to start looking at financial models and even being more creative with your budget in the arena of athletics, because, for so many schools have relied on football to pay the bills and be a large part of the financials. We're going to have to find new ways to create financials. Even if we lose 1 or 2 football games, it's still going to have an impact.
Toguchi, but what if we're forced into a situation where football has to creep into the spring? Would you just say let's not have a football season for 1 year?
No, I mean, I think I'd be flexible with whatever you ask. My preference is to play in the fall and keep things normal, because you're also asking kids, if you move a spring sport to the fall, then you're asking those kids to change their schedule too. So it's the impact overall for kids in general and athletics in general.
Okay.
I agree with Toguchi fully, without a doubt. It's very, very hard on everybody. If you don't have football, the financial aspect on things on schools for high schools, I mean, literally they'd be in the red the rest of the year if you don't have football. Even if we do miss a couple of games, worst case scenario, hopefully, then we definitely need to play in the fall probably.
Coach Chadwick, are you concerned about, the out-of-state game, at least with the Texas team being able to come off, with the cross-state travel and that type of thing? Or is it just too early to say?
I think both. I think I am concerned. I did speak with the people that were putting the game on last week, and they said that they have flights booked, hotels taken care of. So their plan is that they're coming. But I think you'd have to be, a little bit crazy not to be a little bit concerned that, that could be an issue. The South Point game, that's not, as big of a deal since they're right down the street.
Yeah. And I also wanted to get your thoughts, Coach, on the couple rule changes the association did announce. They're limiting the amount of contact time you can have in practice. Any problem with that? Any reaction to that?
No, I mean, me personally, we don't do a whole lot of hitting in practice anyways. It didn't affect us. What I thought was good was the allowing of, what we call thud time in the spring. So that's to me was the biggest thing there. The stuff they did for the fall is not going to, affect anything that we do, but, allowing us a little bit there in the spring, I think will be big.
Yeah. And before we let you go,
I couldn't hear him, but I'm pretty sure, being an offensive-minded guy, he was like all cool with the no contact for a while. It'll help him.
He was. He was saying he liked the new bump rule in the spring, where you can kind of go up to a guy and bump him or wrap him up, but don't tackle him, take him to the ground. He liked that rule change.
The way it should be.
Yeah. Coach Toguchi, before we let you go, tell everybody what is the difficult. I'm sorry, my mic is about to fall. Tell everybody the biggest difficulties you guys face as athletic directors, and just what your day is like and how hard you guys work. I don't think people really understand the types of things it takes to be an athletic director at Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools.
Well, I mean, we rely on our coaches to kind of be our assistants. We're an athletic director of one. There's no assistant athletic director or secretary like some places around us have. And we handle everything, transportation, budget, scheduling, and we have to rely heavily on the leadership of our coaches to take care of the administrative things that go on with their sport in particular. It's not a job to me. It's a lifestyle. I got into athletics simply because athletics played a big part of my life, and it's my way of giving back. And so I enjoy what I do. Yeah, it's long hours, but this break with COVID-19 has allowed me time to with my family, my wife and my 2 girls. And on Wednesday, I get to celebrate 14 years of marriage. And I probably would have had an event on Wednesday night, so I had to make a choice: celebrate with the wife or be at the event. It's been good, but I do think athletic directors across the state of North Carolina, we are a national model, and even our ADs Association has done a lot to prep the veteran AD to the young AD during this time for things that we can do with seniors, sharing ideas. How can we check in on our younger kids? How can we communicate with the next season coming up? So we've done a lot of things, a lot of professional development for people across North Carolina.
All right. Well, Coach Toguchi, thanks for joining us, man. We're going to definitely see you during the season. Keep doing what you're doing at Hough. You guys got
a business right there. One of the best.
phenomenal job you're doing over there at Hough. I agree with you. Best in the business. All right. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks for having me on.
See you, Scott.
Scott's not leaving. Scott's not leaving. Scott's not leaving.
I'm so depressed.
Here's my question, Coach Chadwick. How concerned, or not how concerned, but how do you as a football coach, when we get back to life, this virus isn't going anywhere. You're a coach, you got 50, 60, 70, 80 kids. What steps are you talking about taking, or is your school talking about taking to keep kids safe? If a kid gets sick, you're going to isolate him. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what kind of precautions are you guys talking about?
Honestly, I don't mean to pass the buck, but I imagine anything that we are doing is going to be passed down from CMS. They're going to probably set the guidelines on how we're supposed to do things, and it'll get passed down to Mr. Bosco, our principal, to Brian Poor, our AD, and then passed down to me. And I'll have to come up with a way to put it into plan with my assistant coaches. And it's definitely, we've already talked about it in some of my coaches' meetings. We've already talked about that. It's going to be another thing that we're going to be, responsible to do. And but I think we all feel like if it means we get to play football, we'll do it.
Yeah. All right, Chris. You're the coach of Richmond County. You're playing Mars Park in the state semifinals of 2020, and Caleb Hood is sick. What happens?
You got to go the next man up. I mean, you've got to show you've got confidence in the guy.
Can we get this game in Myers Park this year?
Well, Coach Till in on here now. Coach Till in on here.
Can we put this one at Myers Park?
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying you got to go next man up. I mean, they had a tremendous JV team last year. They've got a lot of talent. You've got to believe with what I've seen coming through that pipeline of Richmond County that they don't have another Caleb Hood. Stars like that are few and far between. But you got to go with what's got you there. You can't all of a sudden change the offense and come up with some crazy scheme last minute if he's not in there. You just got to go with what got you there and maybe stack the box on defense or do whatever you can to disrupt Myers Park's offensive game plan and just try to shorten the game and make the best you can out of it.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are here, because that's a real thing that we could go back to playing and a star could get sick, a coach could get sick, Coach Chadwick could get sick. I mean, what are your thoughts about that type of situation?
My thoughts? Well, I agree with the next man up, and with the coach getting sick, that's that's Chadwick's in a good position where he has a lot of good coaches around him. So, and I feel like Richmond's in the same situation. They have a lot of coaches around them, so the game would be impacted a little bit, but you can't change what you've been doing all week to prepare for the game, what you've been doing all season. You can't change those things. Coach Griner probably remembers a situation where a school had a star quarterback go down, and his opposing team practiced with one kid all week and then went with the star that went down, and that didn't work out too well in the game. Exactly. So you got to go with what you got. You've been, by the time we reach Langston, if your question is at the same point in time, the schools have been doing the same thing every week. The only thing that changes is the team that they're playing and the scheme that they run and how you attack it or defend against it. But otherwise, and the coaches that help develop that are still there. It's certainly an impact, but and I'm sure that the coach would still have some Zoom input or of some sort. Chadwick might not be able to be on the sideline, but I guarantee during the week he's talking to the players, even if he's in ICU. So, or talking to the coaches.
Myers Park, if Scott was unable to coach, Myers Park might get less calls against them, to be honest with you, because he wouldn't be beating up the refs a little bit.
Well, they might not, because they would have some coach out on the field beating up the officials, right?
No, but Sam, I mean, this is a real thing. I mean, when we start playing, kids could get sick. It could, in very important positions. I mean, how do you deal with that? You're head coach. How do you deal with that as a coach?
Turn everybody into a vegan, brother, and you ain't got to worry about getting sick as much. That's the whole key. I can walk right up to the virus and not get it. I'm telling you.
Oh, here we go. Don't say. Let's knock on some wood for Sam. Everybody knock on some wood for Sam.
Let him go.
You know what's the concern there? I think if a player or a coach gets sick, you guys have been around each other all week. How do you handle how do you handle that is the concern, because we know with this particular virus, it spreads quickly and, multiple spreads. So how do you handle that shock that could potentially come up with the team? What's your words to your team?
I think the biggest part of this is going to be the preventative measures. And one of the things I was talking to, my AD about it today, Brian Poor, that, we've seen, little viruses, go through the team sometimes. Something like this could definitely be an impact. And again, it goes back to your earlier question. My big concern is just the locker room more than anything else. Because football locker rooms are probably not the most hygienic places in the world. And it's definitely something we're going to have to monitor.
What about the weight room?
I think the weight room's a little bit easier. We actually have the things in our weight room so that as soon as somebody uses a bench or a bar, we've got wipes right in there that they immediately can be wiped down. So that doesn't concern me as much as the locker room does.
I think everybody's going to have one of those little guns where they can kind of check your temperature, and guys have temperature checks a lot coming in. I think there's going to have to be something done. Guys, how do you guys feel if there's fewer fans at games? There you go. If there's fewer fans at games, there's 500 on the side. Is that okay to play with, or is it okay to play with no? I know it's difficult financially to play with no fans, but is any of that worth looking into, or do we not play football unless everybody can come?
I think a couple of things there. Number one, they talk about that at the college and the professional level, and at those levels, obviously the gate receipts are a big deal, but at the major college level, at the professional level, their major form of income is their television contracts. At the high school level, it is the gate receipts, and that's extremely important to high school athletics, or the football gate receipts. So, I think it's going to be tough to financially survive if you don't allow fans at football games and limiting them. Speaking from the Myers Park point of view, where you go back to the schedule I was talking about. We're able to play in those games and do those things because we've got a couple of players that get people want to see, and we've been a little bit successful. But the other reason why, we were kind of asked to do some of that stuff is because people know we're going to bring a great crowd, and people know we've got a tremendous school and community behind us. And so that's a big deal for us. So if they were to limit the crowds, I think we're a team that could be really impacted by that because of the fan support that we have.
Is it better to play with 500 fans or no fans at all, or not have a season at all? I guess is what is my next question.
Obviously, the 500 is better than nothing.
We have a question from Big Planet Fitness, and I'll throw it to Chris. I don't know if you guys can see it on screen. What happens if there's an outbreak, 5 or 6 athletes? Chris, what do you think happens then?
Man, it's just a tough question, but you think about it in terms of practice, and yes, we may not be doing the amount of contact that we've been, so you might not have the sweaty bodies piled on top of one another, maybe like we would have in the old days, but you've still got the close contactness of players being close to one another and being able to transfer in practice and locker room situations, like Coach said. I think you just got to play it case by case situation. I don't really know what that answer is because I'm not a medical professional. But what I do think is you're going to have moms and dads and parents who are going to err extremely on the side of caution, and they're going to prevent those players from even being there. I think if there's even a hint of something going around the team, I think you're going to have moms and dads pulling players away before it ever even gets to the chance for administration to react.
Anybody else with reaction to that?
Yeah, if there were 5 to 6 players on the team, of course, the other parents within the program are going to know about it. And with what we've got going on here, that if there's 5 or 6 right now, there's some more that may be asymptomatic or habit. And I think parents are probably going to keep their kids away, wouldn't let them come out with that, hold them back. So that could be devastating as far as that particular program is concerned.
Yeah, I tend to think if there's 5 or 6 kids, that team might get shut down, even if it's from as Coach Chadwick said, from above our heads there.
Right.
Coach Chadwick, have you
one person gets it? If they can't isolate the one person, there's a good chance that they make the whole team shut down if it's just one.
Yeah. Coach Chadwick, have you ever had any situation, you coached for a long time, but you've had anything anywhere close to this type of, environment that we're dealing with right now?
No. This is so far off the radar and so far different from anything I've ever dealt with. And not just from the football aspect. From the football aspect, trying to coach my kids over Zoom meetings and through putting them on a Canvas course, which is ridiculous, obviously, but but the other part, trying to teach this way and trying to be a teacher this way, and then just living life this way it's obviously different than anything we've ever dealt with. I think, I've been a head coach through 9/11. I was a head coach in the DC area when we had the DC sniper. They caused some really interesting schedule disruptions, and obviously being in DC when 9/11 happened, that was interesting as well. But compared to this, those were very, very minor.
Yeah, these are definitely unprecedented times. Go ahead, Dale.
I'm sorry, Langston.
Go ahead, Dale.
Coach, from the point of time that school was called to now, have you seen a change in any of the kids, students, and then, of course, your athletes? Have you, and maybe can you tell us a few of the things you're doing to keep your athletes engaged competitively, to keep that mind, that competitive mind going? Because in my book, this has got to be something that eats against a competitive person deeply.
I think as far as seeing changes in the kids, you talk to them a little bit in these meetings that we have, but, from a physical standpoint, it's really hard to look at them on a Zoom chat with 30 other kids and kind of, be able to tell anything. As far as what we're doing, we're not that much different than anybody else. Our administration was good about letting us we teach our classes on this platform called Canvas. And basically what we did was we created a Canvas class for the football players. And we're able to go in there. We put all of our workouts in there for them to see. We put all of our announcements, all of our schedules. That's where we announced, all the different meetings that we're having. Today would have been our first day of spring practice. So now what we're trying to do with our Zoom meetings is make them more X's and O's centric, as opposed to before they've basically just been, checking in on kids and, seeing how they're doing and seeing if they have any questions about the workouts. And then I have another Canvas class for just our leadership council. And so I've been doing leadership training class with that group of guys. And that's actually been very beneficial and been very productive. And so I don't feel like I've lost anything with that group because we're doing the same thing we probably would have been doing anyway. And so, I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing much different than anybody else is doing, but just trying to stay connected with the kids, trying to find out what needs, making sure they're eating, making sure that they know every school in CMS that's offering, lunch and breakfast, and making sure they're getting there, and checking on some other ones. Some other families are kind of going through a rough time and trying to help them out. But, as far as the competitive part, that's really, really tough to manage at this point.
Coach, I guess my question wasn't quite understood. I meant to how do I phrase this? It's a mental thing. The competitive edge of an individual or of these athletes, they're highly competitive, and now they're being taken out of competitive situations. So when I mention about providing anything, that mental aspect of keeping them challenged in their minds, and have you seen a change mentally, mental health wise, from the start of this thing to now? Are you seeing any kind of change in the young people?
I think the biggest thing, that they're no different than the rest of us. And I think the biggest thing I see in them is what I see in everybody else. And that's just a little bit of frustration, a little bit of just, we're all just kind of tired of being at home and not being with each other. I went to school today because I had a bunch of packages delivered, and I was just happy to go in the office and chat with the secretaries for a little bit, just to, see some people. And so that was the best part of the day, just actually getting to, visually see people. And I think that's the biggest thing I see in the kids, is that they're just like everybody else, and they want that human interaction that doesn't come from a computer screen. And I think specifically our guys, they look at what we kind of have planned as far as our schedule to start the season, and there's a little bit of anxiety about, man, we've put together something pretty good to start the season here, and there's a little bit of anxiety as to, man, we're gonna miss that. And for me, it's tough not having answers. That's the hard part. The hard part's not having answers for them.
Yeah, that's a really tough.
I can hear them. Whatever you did.
Well, maybe I'll get lucky and I won't be able to hear you.
There we go. There we go.
Does everybody's seen Rocky IV, right? Everybody's seen Rocky IV. The man went isolation, and started training, became a warrior. If it's within you, you're still going to be great no matter what, training wise. I know that we want human interaction, but greatness can come out of you when you're isolated. What drives you in life? It can't just be other people. That's just a reward aspect. But if you got something great living in you, it'll come out. Just like in Rocky IV, that man was daggone a warrior. You saw lifting up.
Well, and
so besides being a movie, that's an adult, and these are, young children. And I know from having raised 4 children at the age that Coach Chadwick's having to work with, you can lose focus very easily, and some of these kids need that focus or someone to help hold that focus for them. I get what you're saying.
In our case, one of our core values is accountability, and we've really tried to kind of stress to the kids that this is one of the best opportunities for you to show accountability to your teammates by what you're doing when you're by yourself. And we've stressed that's a big deal for us right now, is being accountable to your teammates and continuing to work. The other part of it is we've tried to explain to them that the better shape that they are when we finally do get them back, then the less time we have to spend on conditioning, and we can get back to real football. And so that's kind of our message to them, is if you'll do what you need to do now, when we get you back, we all get back together, the better shape you're in now, the faster we can get to football when we get back.
Okay, I have a question for Chris, and I can't put it on the screen, unfortunately, but the question is, Chris, who is going to be the contenders, or who are going to be the contenders in 4AA East and West this year?
Well, obviously, I think right now Vance looks to be the top dog, in my opinion, coming in preseason. You just look at Power Eccles, so many guys they've got that are doing really well. From there down, I think it's going to be a really close call between Coach Chadwick's team at Myers Park. I think Richmond County is very seriously in it. It's yet to be seen with Coach Kennedy Tinsley how Mallory Creek could do. We know Hough would be a very solid team. I think that core group of guys in the West will probably be the same guys that we see year in and year out. In the East, I think it's a little bit more up for grabs. I would not be surprised if Rollsville wouldn't be my number one pick. Of course, Wake Forest is still going to be in the mix, but Rollsville, Pinecrest, and of course, there's always a question whether or not Richmond County goes east or west. But I certainly think Rollsville, Wake Forest, and of course, Leesville Road, they went there last year, but they were extremely senior heavy. So you just don't know how the next man up will go for them.
All right. Well, guys, look, this is a great conversation. I messed up on my producing skills a little bit, but I'm getting better. So hopefully I'll be better next week. We're going to have Sue Duran, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools athletic director, on this next week. So you guys can definitely bring your questions. As you said, I can post your questions on the screen, and we can get your questions answered by the experts with Coach Chadwick here. Tell you how great Myers Park is, and how many touchdowns Drake May's going to throw for this year. Over under is
the best I've ever seen.
Best he's ever seen. There it is. Yeah, you never heard him say that before.
Let's ask Coach Chadwick. So if it was determined that the season, the only way football can be played is it's going to be a spring sport, what's your quarterback going to do? What you going to do with your? Are you going to talk to your quarterback?
Better be talking to Matt Brown.
I don't know that I have an answer to that question. I don't want to speak for Drake. Everybody else seems to want to speak for Drake and talk about what he's going to do. But, I don't know. I'm sure that's something I'd sit down. We'd sit down with Mark and Drake and kind of work out. And I'd like to think that with Sam Howe being there, that, it's not like Drake's going to go there with a chance. They're not looking for him to come in as a freshman and start. And I think because of that, I think he'd probably, stick around and play. And I know Coach Taylor probably loved it because it probably means he played basketball. And so he'd get him back for basketball. But, contrary to, what people think, Drake loves Myers Park and he loves his teammates. And him and I have a great relationship. And we sit down and come up with the best thing for Drake and his family and hopefully for us.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well, look, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining Coach Chadwick. We'll definitely have you later on during the season. This is another episode of Talking Preps. That's how you can connect with the Charlotte Observer, sports, high school sports all week long. And we will definitely have these guys back. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for having me.
See you guys.
All right.
See you, Scott. See you, Chris. See you, Dale.
See you, Coach.
Langston.
See ya.
All right. See you guys.